Welcome back to Educator.com's English Grammar course. This lesson is the beginning of our unit on sentence parts and patterns, and it's about subjects. Let's get started. Alright, we're going to start with a basic overview of what a sentence is, what you need to have a complete sentence, and then we're going to get into the parts of that sentence. Then we're going to ask, what is a subject? We're going to look at three kinds: the simple subject, the complete subject, and the understood subject. And then we're going to break the subjects down into categories: single and compound. And finally, we're going to look at how to find the subject in a sentence, which is important for making sure that your sentences are clear and grammatical. All right, what is a sentence? Well, in English, usually, a sentence is a series of words that contains a subject, which we'll talk about today, contains a predicate, which we'll talk about in Lesson 2, and expresses a complete thought. It contains a whole idea. Now, unfortunately, there are many exceptions to these rules, which we will cover, but this is the basics. All right, what is a subject? The subject of a sentence is who or what the sentence is about. It's the star of the show. You can usually find the subject by asking who or what carries out the action of the sentence. So, let's look at the sentence, I love to draw. The action in the sentence is that somebody loves to draw. Who does that? I do. I is the subject. Second sentence, on Mondays, Joanna and Paul attend a dance class. Now, the action going on is that someone is attending, that's our verb, a dance class. Who attends the dance class? Joanna and Paul. So there's our subject. Now, the subject usually, note that word usually, comes before the verb, with three exceptions. The first exception is when writers invert the order for effect. Basically, writers like to show off. Sometimes they like to show off using slightly more archaic forms of English, so they may invert the order just to get your attention. As an example, the sentence, happy is he who is true to himself. Is our main verb. It's a linking verb. It connects the subject to its complement, happy. But he is the person who's doing the being. That's the subject. The second exception, when sentences begin with the construction there is, or there are, or it is, they are, or was or were. So, our example, there is a tavern in the town. Now, our main verb here is, and there cannot be the subject because it is an adverb. Okay, it's modifying the verb is. So, tavern is what's actually performing the action of being, so tavern must be the subject. The third exception is questions. What are you doing? Are and doing are the verb, and there's the subject right in the middle of it. And unfortunately, in questions, usually the subject follows the main verb. All right, let's look at the simple subject. The simple subject is the subject, whatever's performing the action, without any modifiers or articles. Articles are a, an, and the, and we'll cover them in a later lesson. So, the little yellow house in the middle of the overgrown garden has been empty for years. House is the simple subject. How do we know? Well, our verb is has been. A linking verb, all right? It connects the subject to its complement, empty, and the is an article. Little and yellow are both adjectives modifying house. In the middle and of the overgrown garden are both prepositional phrases. And again, they are modifying the subject house. So house is what's really performing the action, so it's the subject of the sentence, the simple subject. The tall, graceful giraffe nibbled on leaves. Well, we know that nibbled is our verb here. It's the action. The giraffe is what's performing that action. And the is an article, tall is an adjective, graceful is an adjective, and on leaves is a prepositional phrase, although it's actually modifying nibbled. Now, the simple subject can be a single word, or it can be a phrase, which is a group of words that does not have both a subject and a verb, or the simple subject may be a clause, which is a group of words containing both a subject and a verb. So, there's a cat in the tree. That's a simple subject, a single word, cat. The cat is what's performing the action of being in the tree. However, the phrase, like the cat that ate the canary, describes a smug person. Well, our verb is describes, and that whole chunk of words, the phrase like the cat that ate the canary, is what's doing the describing. So it is our simple subject, even though it's long. All right, and what my cat does all day is a clause. And is our verb. It is no concern of mine. So what my cat does all day is a clause. It's a chunk by itself. It's a simple subject. There are no modifiers that we can eliminate. Now, the complete subject, as you might have guessed, is the subject with its modifiers and articles. So, remember our sentence about the house? Well, the complete subject is the little yellow house in the middle of the overgrown garden. That's one long complete subject. And the tall, graceful giraffe is the complete subject. Take a look at these sentences and find the simple subject of each sentence and the complete subject if there is one. A watched pot never boils. Every night the moon shines down on the fields. And there are strange goings-on in the house across the street. Take a good look, pause if you need to. And there you have it. A watched pot. The simple subject is pot because our verb is boils. Never is an adverb modifying boils. So the pot is what's doing the boiling, or not boiling as the case may be. A is an article, and watched is a modifier altering pot. What kind of pot? A watched pot. Every night the moon shines down. We know that our verb is shines. The moon is what's shining. The is an article modifying moon. Shines down on the fields. And there are strange goings-on in the house across the street. Our verb here is are. Well, what are in the house across the street? Goings-on. And strange is an adjective modifying them. What kind of goings-on? Strange ones. Now, the understood subject is used in a particular mood of sentence called the imperative. An imperative sentence is a sentence that gives a command. It gives an order. In an imperative sentence, the subject is not included. There is no word that you can mark as the subject, but it is understood that the subject is you, the person being addressed. You're the one being told to perform the action, whatever it is. So if someone tells you, wash the dishes, the verb is wash and is suggested and implied that the subject is you. You wash the dishes. Please pass me a pen. Pass is our verb, and again, it is implied that you is who's going to be passing that pen. Try the delicious pea soup. Once again, the subject is an implied you. And go away. The verb is go, and it's you that we expect to be going. So you is the subject. Now, single subjects versus compound subjects. A single subject is one person or thing, even if the word is plural. The subject is all wrapped up in one word or one phrase, no conjunctions. So, Edward has entered the science fair. There's only one person that we're talking about in this sentence who's doing the entering, and it's Edward, so we have a single subject. The cats were chasing crickets. Note that even though we have multiple cats, we have one word that's doing that chasing. So the subject is cats, and it's a single subject. Here comes Jonathan. Our verb is comes, and only Jonathan is doing the coming, so single subject. Summer thunderstorms never last long. Our verb is last. Thunderstorms are what's doing that, so we have a single subject. Now, a compound subject has two or more things both performing the action, or all performing the action. So, instead of Edward has entered the science fair, Edward and Joey have entered the science fair. Note that a compound subject takes a plural verb because both Edward and Joey are performing the action now. The cats and the dogs were chasing crickets. Again, we have a compound subject, so it takes a plural verb. Here come Jonathan and Amy. Note that comes has become come because now we've got two people doing the coming. And finally, summer thunderstorms and showers never last long. Once again, a plural verb with a compound subject. Now, when a compound subject is joined by and, as we saw, it takes a plural verb. Edward and Joey have entered the science fair. Now, that plural verb is not a hard and fast rule because when a compound subject is joined by or, it is singular if the last item is singular and plural if the last item is plural. That last item determines how the verb will go. So, either Carlos or Mark owns this book. We get a singular verb here because we've got that or, and Mark is singular. There's only one of him. But either the cat or the dogs is plural, there's that S, own this water dish. Now, if it were either the dogs or the cat, it would be owns because there's only one cat. But because dogs came second, we use the plural verb own. All right, how do you find a subject in a sentence? Because the subject usually precedes the verb, we can usually find the subject near the beginning of the sentence. But sometimes one or more phrases come before the subject. So in this case, honestly, I did not lie to you. Well, our verb is did lie, not is an adverb. I is who's doing that, and honestly is an adverb coming at the front of the sentence. So don't be fooled, honestly is not your subject. And remember, sometimes the verb can come before the subject if one of those three exceptions mentioned earlier in this lesson is at work. So we look at in a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. In a hole, in the ground, two prepositional phrases. There lived, that's a form of there is, there was, a hobbit. The hobbit is doing the living, and in this case, it's the last word in the sentence. And finally, remember, the subject is never, 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 never part of a prepositional phrase. Let's look at memories like diamonds. Memories like diamonds, prepositional phrase, are imperfect. Diamonds is never going to be the subject of this sentence because it's in a prepositional phrase. And we have again, in a hole, in the ground, prepositional phrases, there lived a hobbit. See if you can find the subject of each of these sentences. Thinking of you is my favorite pastime. Unlike Miranda, I do believe in miracles. Unfortunately, Carlos and Jude did not get along well. With my costume on, I won't be recognized. The boys on the baseball team planned a surprise party for their coach. Take a good look, pause if you need to. All right, thinking of you is my favorite pastime. This is a phrase, but it's what's performing the action is, so it's the subject. Unlike Miranda, prepositional phrase, I do believe, there's our verb, in miracles. Unfortunately, adverb, modifier, we can ignore that. Carlos and Jude did not get along well. Carlos and Jude are performing the action, so there are subjects. Remember, compound subject. With my costume on, well, there's a prepositional phrase that we can get rid of. I won't be recognized. I am performing the action, so I is the subject. The boys on the baseball team planned a surprise party for their coach. Now, on the baseball team is a prepositional phrase. The is an article, so the simple subject is boys. All right, see if you can find the subjects of these sentences. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I, from Shakespeare. Raj, terrified of making a mistake, would not raise his hand in class. Over the hills and far away I will go. Mind your own business. Sometimes doing nothing is worse than doing the wrong thing. Keep your eyes fixed on me. And neither Romeo nor Juliet knew what fate awaited them. Take a good look. Pause the video if you need to. And there you have it. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I. Well, our verb is am, but once again we've inverted the order of subject and verb for effect. Shakespeare really liked to do that. Our subject is I. I am the person who is being a rogue and peasant slave. Raj, terrified of making a mistake, would not raise is our action, and since Raj is the one doing it, we know that he is the subject. Over the hills and far away, well, there we've got a whole bunch of modifier phrases. I will go. All right, and here we have mind your own business. That's an imperative sentence. It's giving a command. So our verb comes first, and our subject is the implied you. Sometimes doing nothing, once again, a phrase that's performing the verb is worse than doing the wrong thing. Keep your eyes fixed on me. Keep is our verb. It's a command. So again, the subject is the implied you. And neither Romeo nor Juliet, compound subject, knew what fate awaited them. They're the ones performing the action, so they are the compound subject. That's all for this lesson. Thank you for watching Educator.com.